So these are the books by Stephen King that I have read, and I'm just going to say a little brief summary of what I thought about them, and I am going to be talking about them in order of the first books that I read to the most current ones. Starting off with 11/22/63, this was my first Stephen King book that I ever read, and it is the also biggest book that I have ever read. I think it is close to about 800 pages, maybe. I have to fact check that, but I got recommended this book on a YouTube video. One of these YouTubers that I watch was talking about it, and it sounded really interesting. And I have always known Stephen King as a horror writer, but when I saw that this was historical fiction, I thought, sure, let's, get introduced to his writing style before committing to anything else. This was a beautiful story. The character development is incredible. I love how the writing transports you back to that time in the 60s, and just these complex rules and systems that the main character has to follow because he's like a time traveler. And it was just an incredible book. Definitely a 4.5 out of 5 stars for me. The middle kind of gets a little long, but I think it was kind of necessary. And it gets a little political, which I am not super interested in, but again, I think it was necessary. Once I got done with 11/22/63, I wanted to focus on works by King that were written in the early 2010s, since 11/22/63 came out in 2011, and I really liked the writing style and just how the characters were developing. I wanted to experience more works that were around that time, and that leads to Duma Key, which came out in 2008. I did not finish this book. I got about 150 pages in and just realized it wasn't for me. It was a very slow to start book. Now, I have not looked up really how this story progresses, but I do know that it is very much praised for the characters, especially a certain friendship that forms between them. And I think that's great, but I don't think I will be returning to it. Okay, Mr. Mercedes. Again, I wanted to stick to the 2010s. This book came out in 2014, and this was one of the worst books I've ever read, to be honest. And I don't know, it just, man, I really liked it at first. Obviously, I bought the book because I really liked the first, 100 pages or so, and then it just went downhill from there. I did not care for the villain in this story and how stereotypical he was, in my opinion. And just the characters were not very likable. A story for me has to have very good characters, I think. I'm realizing as I'm saying this. Um, and then I find out there's 2 more books in the series, and like, well, maybe those are better. But then they start introducing supernatural elements, I guess. And I'm like, what? No way. Like, there were no supernatural elements in the first book, Mr. Mercedes. So I did finish this book, but it was a more of like, ugh, I guess I have to, especially because I bought it. But I ended up just packing it up, and now it's in a box with a bunch of other books, and yeah. After Mr. Mercedes, I was honestly a little discouraged with Stephen King books after reading Mr. Mercedes and not really liking Do McKee. But I remember I was browsing through my college's library and I came across Revival, and it had a really strong opening, and so I went ahead and kept reading in the library, and then I decided to buy the book. Um, and honestly, this story it's pretty good. I've often think back on it and remember parts. It definitely dragged. I originally gave it a 3 out of 5, I think, and I think I'd honestly keep it the same, but I would have a better attitude towards it now after some reflecting and just because I was so frustrated with the pacing, how it started out so great and it ended so weirdly, but the middle was just this really hard to get through part. Um, Definitely a very unique premise. I can say that Stephen King, no book I don't think is like the other in their stories. So I think that's really great. But I do like the characters in this book. I think they could have been a little stronger. Um, I think this book came out in like the 2010s, maybe. So I kind of went back, you know, to that theme. Um, but yeah, I would recommend it if like you had nothing to read. So after some misses with the 2010 works of Stephen King, I decided to go back to his roots and actually read his third book, which is The Shining. Now, I have seen the movie, I own the movie, I used to love the movie. Now I hate the movie. It is not the same story. And I had heard people kind of allude that to me before. It is not even the same story. Because it leaves out so much. I am so amazed with the writing in this book. There are passages that still stick with me after finishing this book that just about the human condition and just truly they really truly make you think and open up so many doors about introspection and metacognition, and I did not expect that from this book. I would recommend it if you enjoy psychological thrillers, but honestly, if you just enjoy deep characters who are not showcased well at all in the film, not even at all. Those are basically strangers compared to how deep these characters are explored in the book. I would recommend it to any reader. Honestly, it's an easier read, but it is a complex read, and I think it's an important read, truly. So now we are getting into a book that I am currently reading. I'm about 70 pages into Misery, and I'm enjoying it so far. It's definitely different from the other books that I have read by King. It takes a very isolating approach to the setting, and I truly think there's only two characters in this book, so far at least, and it's a very unique situation that the main character is in, and it it keeps surprising me, I will say, so far, because I think I have it figured out and I think I know what's going to happen next, sorta, and that doesn't happen, but also it doesn't happen, but it also takes it completely different, where I didn't even think it would go. Um, and I haven't been enjoying it, and I know that there is a movie based on this book. I have not I have not watched it, but I plan to because I love Kathy Bates and I know she's in it, and she's a phenomenal actress, and I'd like to see, kind of how true it is to the book. It doesn't have to be true to the book, but I think it should pay a certain homage. And going back to The Shining, I really don't think that it even did that. I don't. Um, I would have called it, cabin fever, because that's all it was in The Shining. It didn't have nearly the same impact as the book. All right, back to Misery. I really am enjoying it, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. So those were the books that I have read by Stephen King, um, and kind of what I thought about them. In my next video, I am going to talk about books that I want to read by Stephen King. And I do read other authors. It just happens to be a lot of Stephen King, but I do read other authors, and I can talk about those as well. But yeah, thanks for watching, I guess. And yeah, see you around.